Hello and welcome to Smooth Musings, the podcast of Smooth Fusion. And today we have a special guest, Jonathan Reed from Progress. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hey, how you doing, Todd?
Good. So we're gonna spend some time with Jonathan talking about the versions of Sitefinity, the life cycle phases of all of that, kind of what's going on with the technologies in each of these different versions, and hopefully give you some really good information about what's going on and how to plan and know how to read all the tea leaves on that. So first of all, Sitefinity is celebrating 20 years. So congratulations. I'm sure Jonathan was there day one.
Close. I think 13 years,
All
almost
right,
14
yeah.
years I've been working with the product, so almost.
Yeah,
Three-quarters of the life, I guess.
Yeah, Smooth Fusion's been working with Sitefinity since 2009. Started with version 3.7 back in the day.
Right. Yep.
There's been lots of versions.
Yeah.
Lots of versions, which is good because they each one get better. So yeah, Jonathan, tell us a little bit about the current version that we're on now, and then we'll jump into kind of understanding life cycles.
Well, yeah, as of this recording today, the most recent version is 15.2. Let's see. It was reduced. The good thing is we have lots of timelines to tell you about it. And if you haven't gone to this page ever before and you're ever curious about the timeline of Sitefinity, sitefinity.com/timeline. We have a fancy redirect to go to a progress page, but that's besides the point. But 15.2 was released close to my favorite time of the year, which was October 29th of 2024. Love Halloween. I'm a big fan. The highlights of features there were released were Next.js capabilities, some new WYSIWYG editor capabilities as well, some performance optimization functionality with Insight. So there's a lot of marketing-based enhancements along the way. Definitely a ton of marketing enhancements since 3.7, which again,
For sure.
I never had to build one from the ground up, but I did have to work on one. So yeah, I mean, if you're ever curious about what's been happening with Sitefinity, that timeline page is a great representation of the highlights of each major and minor release. John, what does that mean? I'm glad you asked, Todd. Each year, we typically release the product 3 to 4 times a year with new features and functionality, right? That's your 15.0, your 15.1, 2, 3, and we will have another one after 15.3, which is slated to come in the March timeframe here pretty soon. Those are our new features and functionality type capabilities, right? And then we do have patches, which are typically bi-weekly. So again, that's kind of our general life cycle as we roll into that. But yeah, the latest release has been great. Lots of great optimization features for authors and editors, generative AI stuff. I mean, the list kind of goes on. We're not going to take the whole time on that today because I'll go to my face turns blue. But
no, that's helpful though. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about when they're looking at those charts and all. There's some terminology there.
Yeah.
Particularly, obviously what the active date is, that makes sense.
Right.
That's when it became available. But
Sure.
Explain a little bit about what is this limited backport request date, and we'll start there and kind of go through the others. What happens on that date?
Yeah, I mean, so on occasion, there may be a bug or a feature which they may fix in a newer version. So for example, maybe you're on 14.4, which is a long-term supported version, right? Minimum of 4 years. And there's a bug that was fixed. You can make a request to have those things backported when feasible. I mean, they're not a guaranteed acceptance or anything else, but you can make that request during that particular period of time. Followed by that, there's the next phase. But it's a limited period of time, and just to know the date that's in there, it's the first day of that month that particular period happens.
And so explain, what do you mean by having it backported?
Yeah, again, it would be to a version that is potentially not supported, or Again, they're kind of special request cases.
Okay. And then after that, obviously the next date there is sunset. So explain what happens at sunset and how that differs from retired.
Besides the beautiful thing that happens every night,
Yeah,
yeah, right? Kidding.
especially here in West Texas.
You got to rub it in. We got some good ones here in the cornfield of Indiana, but um, we're both very flat country, so whatever. All right. Besides the point, yeah. So sunset. What does that particularly mean? So, in general, the sunset period again starts on the first date of the month that it's happening, right? And then sunset again is the capability of patching for security purposes of high capabilities, right? You still get support. Typically, a lot of times, best case depends on the issue at hand. And then my friends will join us here. And then again, any high critical security patches would also be placed during that particular time, again, on any versions that are in that particular period.
Okay. And then when it's finally retired, then we're not touching that version anymore. Is that
Correct.
yeah.
Yep. So again, support becomes a best case scenario. So if you're on a retired version and you happen to submit a support ticket, they would inform you that you're on an unsupported version or a retired version, and that the best course of action would be for you to upgrade to probably at least the current long-term supported version, or you can go obviously beyond that to a version that is supported to get get you back into support and maintenance.
Gotcha. And so let's talk about that a little bit. Long-term support.
Mm-hmm.
We see that the LTS characters after some of the versions.
Sure.
So you alluded to it a little bit a while ago, but what all? Uh, let's go through all that to make sure folks understand what LTS is.
Yeah, so it's a version of the software, typically the last one in a major release. So 13.3 was in the 13 timeframe. 14.4 was again the last release of that particular major version. So the big number at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then again, we will have a 15.4 long-term supported version. This in general has been a 4-year support lifecycle. So if you are on that particular version, you will again continue to receive bug and patch support. Again, above and beyond what might happen in that sunset period. Of course, those do also go into the sunset period. So, if you've attended our recent webinars, we have increased the length for 13.3, which is our kind of mainstay first long-term supported version, which was actually released in March of 2021. We've increased that particular long-term support till 2026, so April 2026. So in that, and again, it's best case effort. It's still in its sunset period, right? So we've really increased the sunset, so the last cycle of it. If there's a high security event, I'm going to say may patch it. I can't guarantee, and nor will I. But again, it has the potential to be patched for again definitely high security fixes. If they are minor bug fixes, things like that, unfortunately, getting to the latest version is going to be your best course of action for those. So currently, the current long-term supported version, which is 14.4, it is retired in April of 2027. Again, if you've been a long-time Sitefinity customer, we have recently changed our lifecycle page to actually show future releases, which I think is huge. For Todd and I, who've been using Sitefinity for quite some period of time, we didn't always say that, right? You didn't know. So we can say, currently October of this year, so 2025, we'll have that long-term supported version. Again, subject to change, not guaranteed. I'm a publicly traded company, right? Okay. Besides all that, again, in the October timeframe, long-term supported version of 15.4. So again, for planning purposes, and we've put a retire date of no earlier than January 2023. So that's kind of exciting. So, at least from October, that's about 4.5 years, worth of support for that particular version of the application.
So when you said 2023.
2030.
2030. Yeah.
2030. Yeah, sorry. 2030 if I misspoke there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
2030. I
So
know it's
no
sorry. Yeah, it's
earlier.
weird to say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no earlier
2030.
than a date we didn't know was a
Yeah,
real
we're going
date.
backwards in time. It's back to
Yeah.
the future. No. 2030. So yeah, the next long-term supported version will be retired no earlier than 2030. Sorry, just to
Okay.
get those numbers in the right order there. Yeah.
So obviously a big discussion point with our customers and in the
Yep.
whole Sitefinity community is progress has been keeping Sitefinity up to date with the evolution of Microsoft ASP.NET.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, we actually got to do a really good version of this podcast with Sam Basu
Yeah.
about all that history and all. Which, if you haven't seen that, folks, go look that up. We'll put a link to it. But let's talk about how that is reflected in these versions. And I know you've got some things you can share there
Right.
from web forms, which was the really old way to do things that
Right.
Microsoft retired web forms. I forgot a while
10,
back,
10 years ago.
something like that.
A while,
And
while
then
ago. Yeah.
MVC was the thing,
Yep.
and Sitefinity became MVC supporting,
Mm-hmm.
and then MVC got retired by Microsoft. Actually, a while back there as well too.
Yeah, I don't have the number in front of me, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's been
been
a
a
little bit of
while.
time.
And so now Sitefinity is supporting ASP.NET Core,
Mm-hmm.
and so talk a little bit about all that and what your version how your version impacts that.
Yeah. Well, we don't just support ASP.NET Core. We've actually introduced even
Right.
more technology. We also have, for more front-end developer types, if you will, we also have Next.js. So the evolution of Sitefinity, right? So the modern sort of monolithic content management system is not really the path forward, right? So previously, we basically had a database and a server, right? And that worked, but it very tightly coupled together our front end presentation and where we're doing all the work, right? So that's updating pages and content and information. This had some effect on, how the front end might perform. So what we've done now is decoupled the process, right? So our front end technology can be, again, ASP.NET Core or Next.js. We, of course, have a collection of web services where you can consume our content anywhere. So, I mean, that's still a thing. We've had that since version 9, really. So when we decouple it, you can actually add in front of what you currently have today. So in order to kind of give us the opportunity to replace the middle sections of the content management process, if you will, so we'll call it the database and the tier that produces the services, if you will, we got to replace those moving forward. So adding what we call a renderer in front of that gives us the best case moving forward. So as we look at the next generation of Sitefinity, being on a renderer allows us to switch out those bottom two tiers really into anything we want. I mean, we could chisel it on my stone wall in the back as long as it knows how to read it. Nobody cares, right? So that's kind of the process moving forward. Again, you can add on a renderer today. We recommend at least version 15 to use renderers, 15.2 if you want Next.js. You can add one of those on the front end. We have some new tools to help you out as well. So again, for Todd and I, we've been doing this, it seems like forever. And during that time, we've obviously collected a lot of assets, right? We've produced widgets, we've got templates, we got pages, right? I mean, a whole bunch of stuff has happened over the years that we've owned this content management system. So a couple weeks ago, about a week and a half ago, we released an analyzer tool. If you're on version 13.3 and beyond, you can place this analyzer tool into your website. We recommend doing it in a non-production version. So take your database back up, move it somewhere else, or get Todd and his team to help you. From there, you can get a view of what the heck's going on with your site. How many pages you have, how many templates you're using, the inheritance of templates, how many widgets you have, custom widgets, are they web forms, are they MVC, boom, boom. I mean, like stuff is going everywhere, right? But you get a holistic view of the entire application in one place. We got some charts and some tabs and some graphs that you can go through. Well, not graphs, but charts, really. Grids? Grids. That's what they're, grids. Whatever they are. So now you can start to analyze your site to look towards the future. Now, here coming out in the next few weeks and months, we're going to start to release migration tools. So if you're still on web forms, you're going to need to migrate that. Again, one way or another, you got to do it. So we're going to come out with tools for you to migrate web forms pages, and these are not forms like contact us style forms that you're building in the back end of Sitefinity. This is the technology that Microsoft produced called web forms. It's very stateful and boring. Anyway, so you're going to need to migrate, right? So we're going to help by coming out with tools to help you do this process. Now, again, you may have custom widgets that you need to rebuild. Rebuilding them in ASP.NET Core and Next.js is, I'm going to say, at least 50% faster than doing it in previous versions. Now, I'm not just saying that because I work here. I used to be a consultant. We don't talk about that part of my life anymore, but I've built anything and everything with Sitefinity. I started on version 5, so I'm not quite as cool as Todd. But the first site I ever built was on version 5. It's definitely significantly faster for generating out your own new widget. So we add in this front end technology. We will have to, again, migrate some content, some pages, and well, not the content, but the pages at a minimum, right? You can do a Big Bang Theory if you want. You could use multi-site, spin up a new site, build all the new pages, maybe even take the opportunity to redesign your brand, take advantage of the new functionalities that we have within the back end of Sitefinity and the new page editor. Or you can go page by page, decide on a section of pages. If you're not needing to go through a new design, that's fine. You can pick a section of pages, basically kind of go from the outside in. Do I have the templates do I need? Do I have the widgets that I need? Migrate those pages and release them, right? So you can do a slow migration process, or you can do, I like to call it the Big Bang Theory. Or, better yet, you could maybe look at one of our new hosted solutions like Sitefinity SaaS and give you the opportunity to, rebuild the whole thing. We can still migrate your content. We still have ways to do that as well. So news, blog post, custom content types that you might generate. So again, the new front end technologies, again, are much faster. They're even more what you see is what you get as far as the editor goes, at least for building pages. Again, a lot of new tools in the back end for navigating around through content. Keyboard shortcuts have been released along the way. So lots of new ways to help improve content flow and creation.
Great. So as far as how does this affect, or how does my version number affect the available technology? How far can I go with web forms? How far can I go with MVC?
Sure. Good question. Well, web forms is deprecated in version 14.1. Okay. Now, that being said, it still works in the newer versions. We do not necessarily recommend that you release them to production. Again, we're not supporting them any longer. So if there were any issues or anything like that, I don't want to say you're on your own, but it is kind of a best case scenario. So again, for those customers who are on web forms, we are coming out with tools to help you. Again, releasing in the March, early April timeframe is at least the anticipated plan right now, to help you migrate to one of our newer technologies. And our first go around will be in the .NET stack, which we're all kind of used to, obviously. Again, it still works, so you can go through those slow page migrations, but we don't necessarily recommend that you host it in production. I'm not saying you can't, but do your due diligence as far as testing goes and everything else. So yeah, version 14.1 web forms. Actually, you know what? I did have a little chart that we could might make it. Yeah, people who do look at it here. So let me share my beautiful background here. It's whatever Microsoft popped up today. I am not a world traveler, so I don't even know where this place is, but I definitely want to go there because it looks really cool. I probably could click on something for it to tell me. Somebody's going to comment later and tell us what it is. But but let's look at the supported technologies here. So again, as mentioned, the only current long-term supported version. Again, we've only increased the sunset phase for 13.3 is the only, again, long-term supported version that still technically supports the web forms capability. So the green boxes are supported stuff. Once you really get into the 14 and 14.1, we're no longer supporting it. We've not removed the technology. So again, you can still upgrade and it'll still work, but we do highly recommend that you take a look at migrating to one of the new front-end technologies like ASP.NET Core or Next.js. Remember, you can stand it up right in front of what you already have today. As we go into ASP.NET Core, was really introduced in version 14. So if you're on 14, you could add it to that. We've made enhancements, of course, along the way to ASP.NET Core. Next.js, so again, our newest front-end technology. This is, again, React Next.js type technology, TypeScript, again, more JavaScript-based development patterns. That was released in 15.2, okay? So if you want to be on Next.js, it does work in some newer versions, but the official release from Sitefinity was 15.2.
Okay.
As far as Sitefinity Cloud Ready, so if you're already on Sitefinity and you are interested in using our hosted solutions, you can be on 13.3. And really, you can hand over the code and the database, and we'll at least get it stood up for you. You're still responsible for testing the application and make sure it's functioning in the way that you anticipate. You'll have 1 year to upgrade it for you, but as a side note, you'll get an automated upgrade in that particular process, okay? So we'll upgrade your code to the latest version at the time that you're upgrading. So if you put it in there today, tomorrow, it would create a pull request and say, hey, we have a 15.2 version for you. Would you like to accept it or not? You could obviously pull it down to your own local dev. So it's a quite interesting chart. Again, if you're on web forms, now is the time to act and take a look at the future. We recommend, again, migrating to a renderer. You could migrate to MVC, but in my opinion, it's the same level of effort, actually maybe more, because I've already touted that the new renderers are even faster. So again, we recommend getting onto a renderer. That's going to be the best case for the long-term life cycle of your Sitefinity application, moving into sort of the next generation.
Right. Because MVC will not be supported after 15.4 LTS, correct?
That is the current plan as of right now, correct.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's helpful. Thanks, Jonathan. That's
my
good.
Pleasure.
So anything else that you think needs to be shared along with what we've already talked about?
Well, I'm sure that was a lot for a pretty short period of time here. Again, for everybody who's using Sitefinity, we greatly appreciate you being a customer. We're here to help, both Todd and I. As you're looking at the next steps of your application, let us know. We're happy to help and make sure that you come up with a decent and solid plan for your future. You will have a version of Sitefinity. In its current infrastructure till 2030. So you do have some time to make some plans, right? If you are running versions 13, now's the time to act on plans. Technically speaking, you have about a year, a little more than a year, to get onto something that is supported. Again, our best recommendation is to look at our renderers, right? And you have two choices for that. And if you're on the 14.4 timeframe, you have a little bit more time until that one is, retired and sunsetted. But, looking towards the future, we're always improving and increasing the capabilities of the application. A lot of that will be going into our new renderer. So, getting to those is going to be, again, a really great enhancement for you, your marketing team, and even your developers as well, if you're developing with Sitefinity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, everybody likes it better on the development side and on the page building side, and so it's definitely worth the jump. Better performance, lots of things. So,
absolutely.
Well, thanks a lot, Jonathan. Thanks for joining us today, for sure. And if we can help anybody who's listening to this video, just give us a call. We can help answer any questions or help you with some upgrading if that's what you need. So thanks for joining us today on Smooth Musings.
Thanks for listening to Smooth Musings. If you liked today's episode, make sure to subscribe, share it with someone, and rate us wherever you listen to podcasts. This podcast is presented by Smooth Fusion. If you'd like more information about Smooth Fusion and how we help our customers with websites, custom software, and more, go to www.smoothfusion.com.